Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on the troublesome reign of King John, and we get to hear from King John today in Act 1, Scene 9. But oh my goodness, that means we have to cover Act 1, Scene 7 and Act 1, Scene 8. But Act 1, Scene 8 is super easy. But the things that have been going on so far, King John was excommunicated and looked to King Philip for backup, but King Philip was like, no, I gotta side with the Pope on this one. So now France and England are about ready to go to war again. The bastard has killed Limoges, the Duke of Austria, and was very happy about it, but now England and France are ready to go to war again. So Act 1, Scene 6, we just saw Philip killing Limoges. Somehow in all of this kerfluffle, I guess somewhere else on the battlefield, because we're still sort of in the fields outside of Angers. At the top of Act 1, Scene 7, somehow Queen Eleanor has been taken captive. So we have Arthur and Constance and Louis the Dauphin enter along with Queen Eleanor, who is captive, and she and Constance just snipe back and forth at each other for a while. And Arthur wants them to, make peace of it. And it's Constance saying, like, look who's so high and mighty now. And Queen Eleanor being like, we're not down and out yet, sort of thing. It's just the two of them. They both want that moment where they can triumph in the failure of the other. And they just keep saying that back and forth to each other. And Arthur keeps being like, yes, she's our prisoner, but she's also the Queen Mother. So we need to treat her nicely. And please, grandmother, speak to my mom a little bit nicer. So there's just this sniping back and forth between the two women until a messenger arrives telling them that King John is about to mount another attack because he's demanding that Eleanor be freed. So they need to rally the troops again. And there's a little bit more smack talk between Constance and Eleanor, and Constance swears vengeance against Eleanor and John, and then the scene ends. So not a super exciting scene, but we do get to see a little bit of the conflict that exists between Constance and Eleanor that exists in Act 1, Scene 1 of Shakespeare's version. A little bit of that comes out now that wasn't present before. Act 1, Scene 8 is only stage directions, and it says that there's some fighting wherein Eleanor is rescued by King John and Arthur is taken prisoner. And that's it. That's Act 1, Scene 8. No dialogue even, just stage directions. My little thing says that it takes 1 minute to do this scene. I guess that depends on how much stage combat you want to put into it. If you wanted to make it a whole big fight scene, you probably could, because that's all it says, is that Eleanor is rescued and Arthur is taken prisoner. So Act 1, Scene 9, we're still near Angers, but now we are with King John, Eleanor, the bastard, Pembroke, Salisbury, Hubert, who we haven't met before, and Arthur, who has now been taken prisoner. And John turns to Arthur and he's like, you can still come over to our side. If you want to give up your whole claim, you can be a prince in my court and we will treat you well. And Arthur is like, if I learned one thing from my grandmother Eleanor, it's to wait out captivity with patience, because the tides will turn, somebody will come and save me, this won't last long. And Eleanor goes to John, she's like, we're going to teach him to forget his claim. He's going to forget this whole prideful thing that he has going on. And King John says, Mother, he never will forget his claim. I would he lived not to remember it. But leaving this, we will to England now, and take some order with our popelings there, that swell with pride and fat of laymen's lands. Philip, I make thee chief in this affair. Ransack the abbeys, cloisters, priories, convert their coin unto my soldiers' use, and whatsoever he be within my land, that goes to Rome for justice and for law, while he may have his right within the realm, let him be judged a traitor to the state and suffer as an enemy to England. Mother, we leave you here beyond the seas as regent of our provinces in France, while we to England take a speedy course and thank our God that gave us victory. Hubert de Burgh, take Arthur here to thee. Be he thy prisoner, Hubert. Keep him safe, for on his life doth hang thy sovereign's crown, but in his death consists thy sovereign's bliss. Then Hubert, as thou shortly hearst from me, so use the prisoner I have given in charge. So this is John laying out the orders for everybody of what should come next. So he's saying, like, Mom, this whole thing with Arthur wanting to be king is never going to be over, but we need to move on from here. So I'm going to go back to England. Philip the bastard, you're going to come with us, and I want you to go and take all of the money from the church. Go to all the abbeys, go to all the cloisters, go to all the churches, whatever. Collect all of their money and use it to muster an army for me. And anybody that still believes in the Roman Catholic Church, anybody that wants to fight for the Roman Catholic Church, like, okay, in the realm of whatever, they're allowed to do that. But in my England, they are considered traitors. So treat them as traitors, take them prisoner, do what you have to do. And he turns to Eleanor and he is like, Mom, you're going to stay here and you're going to watch over France. You're going to make sure that all of our provinces in France are still cool. And finally, he turns to Hubert de Burgh, who we haven't met yet, but he's like, here, I'm entrusting you to look after Arthur, presumably also staying in France. He's like, you're going to look after Arthur and keep him safe because he's supposed to be king, but really the king would be happy if Arthur didn't exist anymore. So he's like, you know, until you hear from me, treat Arthur as the prisoner and that you are supposed to look after and take care of. So they all, like, individually accept their tasks and say, yes, we can do this, huzzah, and then the scene ends. So again, not a super thrilling scene. We're just seeing sort of the closing of some stuff, but then the building of a new war that's going to happen. It just sort of gives this idea of ebb and flow between who's out in front, England versus France, whereas everybody, the relationship is always changing. This person's a prisoner, now that person's a prisoner, just all the sort of back and forth that happens in that whole mess. So in Shakespeare's version, we just covered 3 scenes in this version. In Shakespeare's version, this takes us to about the end of Act 3, Scene 3. So in Shakespeare's Act 3, Scene 2, we have the bastard coming in with Austria's head because he killed him off stage, and John says to Hubert, like, look after Arthur, my prisoner. I gotta go look after my mom. And the bastard's like, I've already rescued her, so everything's hunky-dory. So pretty much all of Act 1, Scene 6, Act 1, Scene 7, and Act 1, Scene 8 are condensed in Shakespeare's Act 3, Scene 2 in 10 lines. So this version has a lot more character development around these particular plot points than Shakespeare's version does, that just the capture of Eleanor and then the capture of Arthur and the killing of Limoges / Austria, that all just happens in 10 lines in Shakespeare's play versus like 3 scenes in this one. And then in Shakespeare's Act 3, Scene 3, we have John telling Eleanor to stay behind and look after France, and he gives the bastard the order to ransack all the churches and cloisters and abbeys and all of that. But then there's a really lengthy bit where he talks to Hubert about, you know, Hubert's loyalties and can he trust them, and he has something to say, but he shouldn't say it, he can't say it yet. But he very, 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 very strongly insinuates that he would prefer that Arthur be dead. And it's much longer. So in this version, we just have the, for on his life doth hang thy sovereign's crown, but in his death consists thy sovereign's bliss, which could be construed as, you would make me very happy if you got rid of Arthur. Whereas in Shakespeare's version, it's like 4 big monologues from King John about, you know, you really would be in my favor if maybe he didn't exist anymore, and blah, 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 until like Hubert very much gets the message that Arthur needs to be disposed of. But in any case, in the grand scheme of things, plot-wise, we're at about the same place at the end of Act 1, Scene 9 as Shakespeare is in Act 3, Scene 3 of that version. So come on back tomorrow for more, and we'll see where it goes from there. Mwah.